Good evening, everyone. I hope that you are doing well on this stormy evening where I am. And I apologize now. These storms are just coming in. I have skylights back there, and if it starts to pour or hail, you're going to hear it, and it could even drown me out, just depending on how hard it is. Anyway, I received a question from one of my subscribers who wants to know um, some questions to some things, so I'm going to answer that. And this could be one of those long videos again because it's kind of complicated. And so if you hate long videos, um, hope you have a good day. And if you feel like sticking through with it, I appreciate you. This is from J. Nicole XO7654. And she wants to know, what was my school life like? So, I just got out of the showers. My hair looks like a wet dog. Anyway, my school life was complicated. So I was diagnosed around 6, maybe 7. I don't know. I was diagnosed young with ADHD, learning disabilities, and Tourette syndrome, and something else. I can't remember. So now back in the early 80s, obviously, society, teachers, parents, people didn't know much about ADHD, didn't know much about learning disabilities or Tourette syndrome, or just even child abuse and how trauma affects people. So in preschool, I only remember bits and pieces of my preschool, so forget that. In kindergarten, I remember not being able to sit still. I couldn't focus on my work. I was always talking to the kids around me. I was always making noise, banging my pencil, or just talking louder than the other kids. I remember I learned some things real quick, and other things I struggled with. And I remember teachers throughout my entire school days were constantly blaming me for being lazy, or not wanting to focus, or not wanting to be quiet, or not wanting to do my work, or, all these blame things that weren't really in my control. But because, again, these things were incredibly unstudied, I guess is the word I'm looking for, or not really researched, or whatever. I'm going to say teachers didn't really know how to handle students with issues like mine. So on top of, having ADHD and the inability to focus and concentrate, I also had trauma that was significantly impacting me in ways that I couldn't express as a child that I was afraid to express to my teachers. Um, because when you're a child who's being abused, I mean, you're often told to stay quiet, or bad things are going to happen, or just stuff like that. Plus, also, you're innocent enough that you don't want to get people in trouble because you don't understand completely that these things shouldn't be happening to you. And so, um, stop. Sorry, dog. So you don't want these people to get in trouble, because especially if they're family members. Um, like, I didn't want my mom to get in trouble because she's my mom, but she was being pretty horrific to me. And so, on top of the ADHD, and on top of the learning disabilities, and on top of having Tourette syndrome, which I, when I was younger, I had more vocal tics, um, where I would bark or meow or scream or just make weird noises. I didn't really swear a whole lot. Like, I know a lot of YouTubers with Tourette's, or that claim they have Tourette's, um, seem to be unstoppable swear machines. And I think that is true for a, a small amount of people with true Tourette's. I just don't think it's in the mass numbers that are shown on social media. But I could also be wrong. But mine were mostly vocal, for sounds when I was a child, and now they are more physical, as I have reached puberty and grown out of the vocal ones. So I no longer have vocal ones. I just have involuntary muscle spasms. But I've learned how to hide them pretty well, throughout my life. I am always ticking, even if you can't see it, and most of the times you're not gonna see it, because I don't like drawing attention to it. I don't want to. What I'm looking for. Draw attention to that, because it's something that I'm embarrassed about, even though it's something that I can actually handle or control, really. Not that I shouldn't say handle, it's nothing that I can control, so I shouldn't be embarrassed about it, but I am, because I got teased horribly as a kid by it, from my mom and my stepdad, and the kids at school were just relentless, and so were some of the teachers. And so basically, I just learned to hide it as best I can. You'll notice, when I'm really, really, really super stressed, is when you're more likely to see small little things that sneak out from my ability to control them. But anyway, so I was dealing with a significant amount of trauma on top of all of that, and I was trying to figure out as a child how to hide all the things that were going on at home, so that I wouldn't get people in trouble, and I wouldn't get in trouble, and I was also trying to focus on my work, and I just couldn't, no matter how hard I tried. So in kindergarten, kindergarten, I was always in trouble. I was always being sent to the corner, to where I would often turn around when the teacher was talking to the kids, and I would turn around and I'd stick my tongue out at the class, or I'd, make goofy faces and make some of the kids laugh, and then I'd get in even more trouble. And um, I'd be sent down to the principal's office. Now, back when I was in elementary school, it was being phased out, but our school hadn't quite got to the phase out period. But our principal was still allowed to spank us. Um, and my principal, who I remember, but I'm not going to say his name, had a very thick wooden paddle with holes drilled in it. And I just remember I used to get that paddle a lot. And I didn't really know why, because I mean, I knew when I was turning around and making faces at the class, I knew that was wrong. But I didn't understand the other reasons why I was getting in trouble. Like, I didn't understand why I was getting in trouble for making noises that I couldn't control. I didn't understand why I was getting in trouble because I couldn't stop talking to the kids that were around me. I didn't understand why I was getting in trouble because I couldn't focus on my work like other kids could, or I was so far behind on the assignments because I just didn't understand them, because I do have learning disability. And it could be, I'm not completely sure, but I have strong feelings that my mom drank while she was pregnant with me. However, I don't have any proof of that, and I have not asked my dad if that is the truth or anything, because my dad doesn't really seem to remember much about when I was really young. And I think it also stresses him out when I bring up the past. So I haven't asked him, and I haven't asked anybody else for that matter. But I really suspect that she drank when she was pregnant with me, because I just kind of always remember her being drunk or drinking something that smelled really bad. So my teachers would accuse me of not paying attention or not wanting to learn. And since I didn't want to learn, they weren't going to waste their time on me in the classroom. And so they'd send me to the principal's office, who would then spank me and yell at me that I needed to behave. And then, of course, I'd get a letter pinned to my back of my shirt or somewhere I couldn't take off. Never thought to take my shirt off, take the pin off, and then put my shirt back on. But I was also in kindergarten. But anyway, so I'd get in trouble at school, and then I'd get in trouble at home. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way through elementary. Basically the same thing. I couldn't focus on my work because there was just so much always going on in my head about things that were going on at home, things that were happening to me, that my teachers clearly knew that things were happening, because I would come to school with bruises and dirty clothes, and my hair would be dirty, and it was quite obvious that there was abuse and neglect going on at home. And I also, like I said, couldn't focus on my work. Now, you would think they would want to get to know why, a student is unable to focus at the level that I was, but I think they just blamed it on I just didn't want to. I don't really know. I don't know how much they knew about ADHD or Tourette's or learning disabilities or any of those things. When I was younger, I have no idea to what extent the teachers um, knew about the things. I'm assuming they knew pretty little. Um, the kids were, I think I said in the video before, that last video put up, I talked about how I wanted to make friends, but the kids made fun of me and treated me really badly. And they played practical jokes on me, and they would do things to make me cry. They'd trick me into thinking they were my friend, and then they would do things to hurt and embarrass me in front of everybody else. And I got tripped in the lunchroom a couple times while trying to carry my tray back to my seat. Kids stole food off my tray and would throw it away or spit on my tray or just, destroy the food I had. And it was really hurtful for me because we struggled with food insecurity when I was a child because my mom used the money that my dad sent through child support to feed us and clothe us on alcohol and things that she wanted. So we often didn't have the things that we needed. And so that meal I would have had at school was probably going to be the biggest thing that I would eat that day. And if I didn't get to have the lunch, then I'd have to wait till the next day and hope I got it. Eventually, they did start a free breakfast and a free lunch program, which was really helpful. But again, still had the same typical kids doing the same typical crap. As my vocal tics got worse due to stress from school, stress from the teachers, stress from the kids, and stress from my home life, I got teased even more. I was always in trouble, even though I wasn't purposefully acting out. I wasn't purposefully trying to be disruptive. I wasn't purposefully trying to not understand the work or just be disruptive. I just physically and mentally could not contain what was going on in my body or in my mind because I had trauma and I had all these other things that teachers are finding out now, the kids can't control, ADHD and Tourette syndrome and learning disabilities. It's not something that the kid chooses to. It's not something they choose whether they're gonna sit there and behave today, but not tomorrow. It's just it's just one of those things where it's an everyday thing, and unless you have somebody that's willing to help you one-on-one or understand that the reason you're acting out is because you have situations that you literally cannot control, you're just gonna always be in trouble. And my teachers would just yell at me all the time, right in the middle of class. They would just straight up yell at me and tell me that I was lazy and I needed to stop playing around, stop distracting the class, and focus on my work. And And they'd call me up to the board, and they'd have math problems on the chalkboard, and they'd tell me to solve them. And I didn't know how, because the biggest thing I struggle with my learning disability is math. I have a very hard time with math. Ouch. I struggle with, I could barely understand times tables. I never got to fractions. I never got to division. I never got to anything higher than the low end of times tables, because teachers just got frustrated with me and gave up, because they couldn't understand why I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why I couldn't understand it. I tried. I really did. I just didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. And while I can do addition and subtraction, I can't do it at a fast pace that a normal person of my age would do it. I still to this day struggle with your basic addition and subtraction. Doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It just means that I, for whatever reason, struggle with understanding how math works. I did excel in reading, and in high school, I really excelled in anatomy and reading, and I was reading at a college level before I even went into high school. And I loved anatomy, and I loved, what was it? I loved anatomy and, oh crap, what did they call it now? Some sort of science where it wasn't science. I'm like learning how molecules and all that stuff works. It was like a body science, but I can't remember what they called it. But I was fascinated by the body and how it worked and how things functioned and things like that. And I still kind of am. Like I've not completely lost the fascination with it, but I'm definitely not as fascinated as I used to be. So while I sucked in some things, I excelled in other things. I do remember as I got older in elementary school, I did try to tell a couple teachers about some of the things that were going on at home, to which they then called my mother and asked her if these things were going on at home. To which my mother replied, "Of course not. She's got a wild imagination. She's a chronic liar. She needs mental help. I'll take care of it when she gets home." Yeah, she took care of it all right. Couldn't sit down for a few days. And she told me never, ever, ever tell people anything about what's going on at home again. So it took me about a year or two, but then I had another teacher that I liked and I thought that I could trust, and I told her some things that were going on, because I came in one day and I had been crying on my walk to school because it had been a very bad morning. There's a lot of a lot of physical stuff had happened. A lot of my mom saying some pretty terrible things to me happened, and so I basically cried while walking all the way to school. So my eyes were red and my face was red, and you could tell I'd been crying. So she kind of pulled me aside, and she wanted to know if I was okay. And I said, no, not really. And she asked me what was going on, and I said, I can't tell you. She said, why not? And I said, because I don't want to get in trouble. And she's like, oh, sweetie, you can tell me anything. I promise I won't tell anybody. It's just between you and me. Yeah. So I told her some of the things that had happened that morning and some of the things that really bothered me about what had happened, I think that recent week or something. By the time I was done talking to her, she just had this look of horror and confusion on her face. Like, I don't know what to do with this information. Like, I thought she was going to tell me she just was having a bad day and maybe some kid made fun of her. But, now she's telling me about all this stuff. I don't know what to do with it. So she definitely looked lost and overwhelmed by the things that I had shared with her. And I remember before she walked out of the room, she looked back at me and said, are you sure these things really happened and you didn't just like dream them up or, watch a movie with this stuff in it? And I was like, no, these things happen all the time. And she was like, okay, well, go take your seat. School class is about to start. Blah, blah, blah. So I had felt a little better that I had told her, and I was thinking, maybe some way she was gonna help me. No, she called. Not only did she call my mom, but she also wrote a letter and stuck it in my backpack, which I didn't see her do. So my mom got a phone call about how, once again, I'm telling the truth about the things that are going on at home, but the teacher she can't fathom this stuff is going on. And so there must be something really, really wrong with me because, and then I don't remember what was in the letter, but more things that of how she didn't believe what was going on or whatever. So again, I was beaten by my mom and then told that when Dave got home, she was going to tell him. And I knew that I was going to be in for a really bad night. And sure as shit, he came home. My mom told him that I'd been telling the teachers lies about things that are going on. And well, if they're lies, then why was I not allowed to? Because they specifically said she's telling what's going on at home and telling lies about it. And so it confused me because it's like I'm telling what's going on at home, but yet I'm telling lies. But no, I'm not, because I'm telling exactly what's happening. So how is that lies? But anyway, so that confused me how she said that. And then so yeah, I got beat pretty bad by him after that. And then I was just like, I'm not gonna tell anybody again because like every time, hold on a second. What are you doing, baby? Sorry. I don't know if you guys can hear the noise, but he's just constantly licking the bed he's laying on. Okay. I made up my mind that I wasn't gonna tell anybody else because I didn't want to get in trouble and nobody was gonna believe me anyway because apparently I was a liar because how could these things possibly freaking happen? Because I was obviously making them up from horror books or something, and I didn't even read horror books. I didn't watch horror movies. I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. But anyway, now I don't know if it was that year or if it was the year after, but I don't know how many of you remember the DARE program. Probably not many, unless you were a child of the 80s. And the DARE program was to keep kids off drugs. And so cops came to our school, and they brought that big dog puppet. I think it was not a puppet, a guy dressed in a dog suit. I think it was Officer McGruff or something. I can't remember exactly, but I just remember thinking, there's cops here. Maybe they'll believe me, because I mean, you gotta understand the reason I'm wanting to tell people is because I want out of this situation. I want to be rescued, because every year that went on, things were getting worse. My mom was getting worse. My stepdad was getting worse. The new ways for them to torture me was getting worse. Just the different things, they were getting worse, and I was getting to a point where I was either constantly thinking of taking my own life, or just, I didn't really know. Like, I had thought about running away, but where was I gonna go? I had thought about so many different things, but like, where was I really gonna go? What was I really gonna do? I mean, I'm a kid. Like, even if I did run away, I'm eventually gonna get caught by a police officer and brought home, and then that's not gonna be good either. So anyway, there was an officer who had talked to our class, and he said, if anybody has anything, they'd like to talk to me about after the class, feel free to come talk to me. You can tell me anything. Of course, he's talking about, do you know people who are using drugs, or pushing you, peer pressuring you into doing drugs, or anything drug related. I don't hear that part, because drugs are the least of my thoughts. I hear him say, if you're having any problems and you want to talk, or need to talk and need to tell me about something going on in your life, you can come talk to me. And I'm thinking, here's my chance. So I ask him, after he's done with his presentation and whatever, I had to walk by his desk to go get I don't remember what it was. Anyway, I walked by him, and I stopped at his desk, and I was like, because he had gone to sit down at the side of the classroom wasn't a desk, it was like a chair with a table, because he was writing stuff down or something. So I kind of stopped by, and I was like, do you think I could talk to you after class? And he was like, absolutely. And I was like, okay. So I couldn't wait for class to get over, because I was like, I just know he's going to help me, because he's a police officer, and this is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to help people who are being hurt. So after class, I go up to him, and I start talking to him about what's going on at home, what my mom's doing to me, what my stepdad's doing to me, all these things. And he just, again, like, halfway through me talking, as I've seen with the other teachers I told, it's like he gets this same look on his face where his eyes just kind of blank out, and he's just got this look on his face like he's just like, I don't know what you want me to do about this. Like, I don't know. I just knew, once again, I wasn't being heard. I knew he was shutting me out. He wasn't listening to me, and it really hurt me, because it's like, you're a freaking police officer. Why are you not listening? I'm trying to tell you I'm being hurt at home, and you don't care, because it's not about drugs, so you don't care. And so when I was done, he's like, I'm really sorry that all that is happening to you. Unfortunately, I can't help you with all of that. Have a good day. And then he gathered his stuff and looked around, said, does anybody else have anything they want to say? And nobody did. So he said, all right, well, it was nice meeting you all. And he walked out of the classroom. And I just remember Nobody's gonna help me. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody. So I didn't tell anybody else for the rest of my elementary years. But things just kept getting worse. And then, so I started junior high, and of course, things are still escalating at home. Now I'm also dealing with teenage stuff because, there's boys that I'm interested in and that are interested in me. So, it's like, I'm still trying to deal with what's going on at home. I'm still struggling with my schoolwork. I'm still struggling with, so my Tourette's has calmed down from the vocal standpoint at this part or at this time, but now I'm still doing like these like twitchy things, which I'm sure looked really special to the kids around me. Because I remember also being called like robot, or I can't remember the other names, but it's like, like malfunctioning robots, how, like you're doing like these jittery kind of moves. But, so like, so my Tourette's have calmed down. My ADHD now, I have learned to mask. So I am now not out of control of my own body. Like I can sit and I can focus to an extent. I still kind of talk to kids a little too much. I'm able to focus on some of my work. I'm still having problems with learning issues, because that is not something that I could hide. That is not something that I knew how to figure out how to get around. So while my Tourette's had gotten better, more controllable, and my ADHD was now being masked, which came out as anxiety, depression, and I was very overly emotional, and I didn't know why. Everything freaking made me cry. But I learned that, by this point now, having had ADHD, or having been diagnosed as of February of this year, that was fun to have burst out of the cage I've been keeping it in for all these years and come and destroy my life, which is a whole nother video. Actually, I posted the video about that, looking for other people that have ADHD, who are diagnosed in their older years, like their 40s, being specifically women. But if you're interested in my ADHD journey, check out that video. But it is long, because there's a lot to explain. But just like this one is already. So basically junior high goes as okay as it can. I mean, I'm a teenager dealing with hormones, boys, a crazy life at home, just all this stuff going on in my life. And then at 13, I ended up going to live with my dad and stepmom, which I didn't switch schools for. I just switched cities, I guess. Cities. Because I was already going out of city from where I lived with my mom. I was going out of city to this junior high, because they had a good special ed program, and I was put in special ed because of my learning disabilities. And I guess because at that point there had been more research about learning disabilities and ADHD. Um, so, yes, I was in special ed in junior high. Um, and not exclusively, like, I still had mainstream classes, um, but like for math, history, um, the things I struggled in, I went to the special ed classes. And the other things, I went to mainstream. I got teased relentlessly because I was in special ed. On top of, again, the Tourette's I was trying to hide. Thankfully, my ADHD was better controlled because I learned how to mask it, and I don't even know how I learned how to do that. I just did. Nothing really super significant happened in junior high. I mean, I did meet a teacher that, for one, I had a massive crush on. And he was my special ed teacher. And I did get to finally talk to somebody that would listen to me. And he'd tell me, I don't have the ability to be able to help you, because, again, back in that time frame, there weren't as many programs and things available for kids who were being abused. So there wasn't really much he could do. Even though teachers are and whatnot are mandatory reporters now, I don't think that was a thing back in the 80s. Because I told him about a lot of the things that had happened to me, a lot of things that were happening to me. Like, he and I probably spent a lot of inappropriate time together, but he never did anything. He never did anything creepy. He never did anything he shouldn't have. He knew that I needed a friend. He knew that I needed somebody to he knew that I needed somebody that would listen to me about the things that were happening to me. I told him that I had begun cutting myself, and that I thought a lot about offing myself. And so he spent a lot of time, like, one-on-one with me, so that I could talk to him, so that he could help me to find my worth, find things about myself that would keep me going instead of falling into the deep, dark depression that wanted me to just end everything. And honestly, had it not been for this teacher who I had for, I want to say, 3 years, I don't know that I would have honestly made it through. I don't know that I would have made it to adulthood, put it that way. He was a very big presence in my life. He was very important to me. He, even though was an adult who was spending time with a junior high school student, outside of class, even, like, he would pick me up and take me on errands to different things. And he had a softball team that he coached, and he would take me out there, and he'd get me a hot dog and a drink, and I'd sit in the stands and I'd just watch his team play, and he'd take me home afterwards. And like seriously, nothing inappropriate, nothing disgusting ever happened. He was just a friend, the friend that I needed, a person that basically saved my life in a lot of ways. I ended up babysitting his children when I was in high school, and I kept in contact with him for quite a few years. But unfortunately, when we moved away from there, over 30 years ago now, um, I lost contact with him. But yeah, he played a huge role in letting me know that there was somebody that cared, somebody that I could talk to, somebody that believed me, somebody that validated the things that I was saying. And even though he was very honest that he didn't really have much he could do to help me, that he was there for me to talk to. Now, when my dad and stepmom um, had the final court case where they subpoenaed everybody, and this was before I was officially, was I living with them already, or I don't remember. I'm sorry. I think I might have gotten a little ahead of myself. But anyway, um, my dad and stepmom ended up calling him into court on my behalf, and he shared with the court everything that I had ever told him about my mom and stepdad, everything that I had ever told him that had happened to me. Um, he told them about the different things that we discussed, some of the different things that we discussed, some of the ways that he really wished that he could do more, but he just didn't know what to do because our system wasn't set up for that. And he talked about how I was hurting myself and was so depressed that I was contemplating ending everything. And he was a very, very good person to have on my side in the court case. So, again, he just saved my life in many ways. Anyway, other than that, junior high was just basically as normal as it could be with the kind of life I had. I didn't tell any other teachers except him the things that were going on at home. And I didn't even tell him for several months, but he would question me when I would come in, clearly haven't had a shower in days, wearing dirty clothes, not covered, but I had bruises on me. And I was just like distant, like I wasn't like present in the moment, like I was just kind of like so numb that I wasn't really, like I was there but not there. And he actually cared enough to ask me what was going on, and what had happened and why was I acting that way. And so that's when I started talking to him about the things that were happening, is because he had asked me so many times about so many things, that so many different times I'd come in with different bruises or this or that or that or this. Like, he actually gave a crap and proved to me that he gave a crap long before I ever said anything about anything that was happening to me at home. So, yeah, when I first started his class, I was still living with my mom. So, I would say it was probably maybe the last year of junior high before I went to live with my dad and stepmom, if I remember that correctly. So high school, I'm still in special ed because my mom, or my stepmom and my dad got me in a special ed program that would help me with the areas that I was struggling with and get me tutors, people to help me specifically one on one with the things I was struggling with. Um, they did all the things that my mom should have done to make sure that I was getting the education that I deserved instead of being pushed off by teachers that just didn't give a crap or didn't know what they were doing or didn't care. Um, so high school was more constructive, I should say. It had more of a, what is the word? Structure. It had more structure to it. Um, I spent a lot of time in art class because I loved art class, and my art teacher really liked me, and he loved my creative abilities for the different things that I could do. And so he would often give me notes to skip my classes to spend my good majority of my time in the art room. I know it doesn't sound like a good person, but ultimately, he was a nice guy, and I still got the education I needed. I still got the the tutors I needed for the things I was learning. Um, I still graduated high school, um, and overall, I would say high school was a pretty normal experience. As far as everything else in my life, I would say high school was as normal as it could be because now I was living in a more stable home. Um, I had finally made a friend that was my age. I um, was finally getting the help I needed for my learning disability, so I was advancing in um, learning to tell time and learning math and learning other things that I struggled with. Um, I I ended up meeting my husband while I was there. Unfortunately, before I dated him, I met a different guy who I need to make a video on at some point, who was extremely abusive and a slime ball. um, but yeah, I met my now husband when I was 16 and he was 17, and we have literally been together all of this time. It's been 30 some, like 32 years, I think, that we've been together total. And we will be married 27 years this November, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's 27. He has been the best thing in my life. This man has saved me more than I can ever give him credit for. But anyway, so yeah, in high school, it was a pretty normal experience, with the exception of what my ex put me through, which I guess is pretty standard considering what the girls are going through now with how violent guys are being. So it was pretty standard, actually. Um, I got along with a good majority of my teachers. I got along with some of the other kids. Like I said, I had made my first friend, but I had other friends, like kids that I talked to, interact with, whatnot. I didn't get teased so much in high school because I had come more into who I was. I was finally able to express myself to an extent. Like, I was able to have my own identity that I couldn't have when I was living with my mom. So I was beginning to learn who I was. I was dressing how I wanted with within the rules of my stepmom's approval. Um, um, I just high school was a better, well, actually, hold on. So when I went to live with my dad and stepmom, the high school I started out in that I wished I would have graduated in because I really loved that school. Um, I really enjoyed that place. I got into concert choir because I had been in choir for several years, and I actually got second chair in concert choir, which was a really big deal to me. And I was really looking forward to performing with them. But then we had to move um, to where we are now because of my dad's job. So I started out high school at someplace completely different where I had more friends, and my teachers all liked me and I liked all of them. And it was a relatively good place. I had a boyfriend there. Um, it was a interesting relationship. Anyway, I don't really want to get into that many details about that. I mean, yeah, he wasn't as bad as my ex, but he definitely wasn't a saint either. And then, so I think it was my junior year, we moved to where I then would complete high school and graduate, um, and meet my husband. And um, yeah, um, I'm trying to think of anything like really significant happened. I mean, I went to the dances. I created a lot of the dance posters and um, artwork that was put around for the dances because, again, I spent a lot of time with my art teacher. Well, not with him, but in his class because he liked to put me to work on the things that were needed around school, the art things that were needed to decorate around the school. He would often ask me if I would be willing to draw these things or do these things, and of course, I absolutely loved doing them, and I felt like I was actually needed. Um, like I actually had something to offer that was a positive thing, and I will never forget this art teacher because, in his own way, he helped me to come out of my shell of who my mom and stepdad had forced me into being. And with his help, he helped me discover who I was and who I wanted to be, and helped me to realize that I am allowed to have my own thoughts and feelings and be my own person and have my own sense of style. And so I did a lot of growing through high school as I came out of the abused cocoon and into a, I'm not going to say a healed butterfly, but a healing butterfly as I started to reclaim my life. Um, and then, like I said, my husband has been probably, honestly, the biggest reason that I am still here today because he knows absolutely everything about me. He knows my entire story, and he has never made me feel bad about it or guilty about it or like I'm a freak of nature, or he's never blamed me for any of it. He's always validated me. Um, and he still loves me despite all the ways people said that I would never be loved. I would be completely worthless. I would have nothing to ever offer anyone. And he's proven to me that those people had no freaking idea what they were talking about. And he helped me to get the courage to start my healing journey, to really start working on all of my trauma, on all of my issues, and to get into therapy. And it took a long time to find a therapist that I actually like, and I think I found her now. And so it's taken a long, long road, but I think I pretty much turned out where I should be. I guess. I mean, I still have quite a ways to go with my healing, but I've done so much healing. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got about my school. And I know it's now over an hour, and I'm sorry, but I did say it was probably going to be a long video. Because my videos, my experiences are usually very complicated and unfortunately have a lot of layers to them. But I hope I answered your questions in the way in which you meant me to ask, or in the way in which you asked about them. I hope that I answered as to what you were looking for. I always tell these things the way that they are. I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't make anything worse. I try not to leave things out, but sometimes I'll remember when the video's done, oh, I forgot, whatever. But if you have any more questions about anything else that I can answer for you, please feel free to ask. And I'm honestly kind of curious. Are you doing like a report where you're like asking these questions for a reason, or are you just specifically just really wanting to know how I got through these things? Or I don't know. I'm curious as to why you want to know some of these things, and I hope that I'm answering them to, I want to say to your liking, but that's not what I mean, because I mean I'm answering them as honestly as they are, but I don't know if I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm sorry. I just hope that however I answered everything is what you was helpful or beneficial somehow. Anyway, that's all I've got for today, and I've been working on some other content, so I will be uploading different things every day. I've got short videos. I've got like what are they called? I've got narcissistic content. I've got abuse content, and I'm gonna have my positive quotes come back at some point. So I'm gonna be doing daily posts every day. I'm gonna try to, and I'm probably gonna start talking more about my story here soon. I'm probably going to leave off, or probably going to pick up where I left off, and just start going back down all that stuff. So again, I hope you all have anybody that's still here, I hope that you have a great rest of your day. I am so sorry that this was so long. My goal is always to try to make the video as short as possible, but like I said, nothing is really short or easy in regards to my past. There is always going to be layers that complicate things. So anyway, it looks like the sun has come out and the storm clouds may have gone away. So maybe we'll have a good rest of our night. I hope that you have a good rest of your night wherever you are, and I hope that you are safe. And until next time, take care.